Welcome to the DisabiliTEA, a podcast where we have candid discussions about all things related to disability. Short-term, long-term, financial claims, impact on other areas of life, causes in the workplace, and more. With your host, attorney Anjel Burgess. You can find this show at www.disabilityhelpline.com and on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more. Now here's the host of the DisabiliTEA, Anjel Burgess.
Hello and welcome to the DisabiliTEA. Today we are pleased to have with us a very special guest, Larry Goodman, who is the Program Director at Plan of Georgia. Welcome, Larry.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, we are so excited to have you with us today and to learn more about Plan of Georgia. So let's jump right on in. And if you would please share with our audience, what is Plan of Georgia and what do you all do?
So PLAN stands for Planned Lifetime Assistance Network. And Plan of Georgia is part of a network of, I think we're now up to 27 or 28 affiliate plan organizations around the country. All the affiliates are dedicated to the long-term care of adults with disabilities.
Excellent.
Go
ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say what distinguishes us from typical services for disabilities is that we are our relationship primarily is not only with the client, but with the family of our client. And our contractual relationship is with the family of the client. So we are serving in the stead of the family. Plan of Georgia was created in the early 1990s by families that were part of the forerunner of what became the Georgia Alliance for the Mentally Ill, the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill. Families who were concerned about, well, what's going to happen to my loved one when I'm not here anymore?
Okay.
And that's how Plan came into being.
And so it sounds like Plan services families and individuals. Can you tell us a little bit more about what services specifically that Plan offers?
So the Plan affiliate in Georgia has been a little bit different than some of the other plans. They're all unique. But what has distinguished the plan in Georgia is that we do a lot of direct service care management services versus estate planning or estate administration. Although we do get involved in helping people with that, that has not been our primary focus. Our primary focus has been direct delivery of services to the clients at the behest of their families. So really, in that respect, it's whatever is going to enhance the quality of the disabled individual's life. And we enter into just about every sphere there is. Of course, a primary concern for a lot of our families is housing. What's going to be the best housing fit for their loved one? Who's going to take care of their finances? Plan of Georgia is an authorized representative payee for Social Security's income. So that's one of the things we do for some of our families. We help people locate housing, help them locate vocational resources, legal resources, recreational, social, basically whatever it is going to, again, improve and maintain the quality of a person's life, then that's what we enter into.
So with the assistance that you provide, when you talk about direct services, will you go to a client's home or their place of residence and help them with things that they may need?
Yes, I've been to 2 client homes today. That is what we do quite often is check in with people in their living environment. How are they doing? What do they need? These are a lot of the folks that they don't have family that are available to do that, at least not in the immediate area. Or if they're here, they don't really have the time or resources necessarily to be doing what we're doing. So we're the eyes and ears of the family in a lot of respects.
Okay.
So yes, home visits to people is one of the main things that we do.
And so what are some of the things that you'll do? Like you said, today you had 2 home visits. So can you share with us, what you did or what you're able to do with
Yeah,
these?
absolutely. So one person has a fairly complex medication regimen. So for that person, I get the medications from the pharmacy and fill up her weekly pill box
Hmm.
because she has had difficulty and sometimes gets confused with how best to do that and with the changes in her regimen. So we take care of that. She's in a subsidized housing setting that has inspections. So she was actually due for an inspection coming up. So one of the things when I go in each week is see the actual condition of the apartment because she's had some challenges with cleaning and organization and so forth. And I may point out some things. In her case, one of the things that had happened is the building had not changed her air filter, and so I didn't do this today, but this is a little while back. So I took the HVAC cover off and found that the filter was completely nothing, no air was getting through. So I changed the filter myself. So sometimes we get quite hands on with various kind of maintenance things like that. The other person I visited, he had a lot of concerns about his finances. He's been falling behind in his bills. He has a credit card, and his credit is suspended because he hadn't been able to make the payments. So we're trying to figure out how to get him back in shape with his credit card and what we needed to do about that.
Wonderful. So it sounds like each one of your clients through Plan, you provide individualized or customized services dependent on their needs. Would you say that's accurate? So it sounds like you provide individualized services for each of your clients based upon their particular needs. Is that correct?
That is absolutely, yes. Each of our when a client enrolls in Plan and a family enrolls, we sit down and work out what is going to be the basic care plan that we're going to be undertaking. And of course, that's constantly going to need to be revised.
Right.
But we want a starting point, and we tailor what we do to what the family believes the person needs and what the person believes they need, and try to find a meeting ground between the two, because they don't always agree on what's needed. So we try to find a common ground for what both can agree is the appropriate thing and the appropriate things to do.
What about needs that are maybe a little less hands-on, but if someone needs, like, for example, they need help with, going to the grocery store, not only getting there, but maybe making sure that they are, selecting appropriate items. Is that something that Plan would offer to their clients?
Yeah, I mean, I often go to the grocery store with people. We also will do, if the person doesn't necessarily like someone in the store with them, and it's more of a selection of the proper foods, or some people actually don't even feel comfortable going into the grocery store. So we may just set up an order the food and have it brought in for them,
Okay.
if that's the case. But yeah, I mean, going to the grocery store, I mean, I like grocery shopping, so that's fine with me. But we will go into the grocery store with people and help them with their shopping if that's what they need.
Okay. And doctor's offices, same type of thing?
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. That's one of the things we do quite often is go with people to the doctor and maintain communication with the doctor. And, for a lot of us, we may not exactly take away from the doctor's appointment what the doctor is recommending and get all of it. So often I'm another set of eyes and ears to communicate with the doctor and help make sure that the client brings up the important issues with the doctor and then is clear about what are the recommendations and things that need to be followed up after the appointment. So I would say that is really, along with the visiting people in their home, the communication with the doctor, coordination with doctors is one of the other main things that we do.
Excellent. So with the frequency, are the services offered at whatever frequency the client may need?
It is, yes. There again, that goes back to how we coordinate with the family and the client. What is going to be the best schedule for that interview for that individual, and then making adjustments as we go along. Is that weekly, every other week, once a month? We have some people that are on quarterly, and we adjust as we go along depending on what the person needs. We also have people that say, well, for right now, I don't really need anything, but they know that we're there when we're needed.
And I would imagine that in cases where your clients may have some mental health needs, that there may be some periods where they need additional or more intense support, maybe during times of crisis, or for example, being in the midst of a manic episode. So are you quickly able to make the adjustment as needed if your client enters a state where they may need more than they typically require as far as support is concerned?
Yes, I mean, we're a small organization. We're not by any means an emergency service, but we can respond quickly, typically within 24 hours, to an urgent situation. And I'm glad you mentioned about clients with psychiatric disabilities, because that is our primary focus. We also work with people with developmental disabilities, but psychiatric disability is our main area. That's my background as a licensed professional counselor, and with quite a number of years of experience. So that's really our specialty area.
Excellent. So it sounds like Plan really provides services that support individuals with disabilities and perhaps may allow them to live more independently than they otherwise would without having the support of Plan.
That's certainly what we're aiming for and what we're hoping for. So it's, again, adjusting that living setting to the level of independence that's going to be ideal for that person. And of course, we also are working with a fair number of older people who then need actually a more intensive, less independent level of housing as time progresses. Okay. So we're really across the continuum of housing, from independent apartments to assisted living and nursing home, depending on what the person needs.
That's excellent. Can you tell us about the staff at Plan? And I know you told us that you're a licensed professional counselor. Do you have other members of the team there that help service your clients?
Yes. So we have one of our other staff members, Patricia, is a master's level social worker. We have a person who is a certified peer specialist in the state of Georgia, and then an administrative assistant.
Excellent. Do most of your clients live in any specific area? What is Plan's geographic reach?
Basically, it's the entire metro area and beyond, if the family is okay with us doing that. I was up in Gainesville, up near Lake Lanier on Saturday. Okay. So if a family wants to engage our services, we'll go further. But typically, it's the Atlanta metro area.
And how are the services paid for?
They are paid for by the family that contracts with us. We do not accept payments from the client themselves.
Okay.
Or do a contract with the client themselves. It is always with the family or the responsible party. And I use the term responsible party because sometimes it is a trust or a trust entity and not a family that is where we are directly serving.
Well, I really like that, because it seems like doing it that way, the individual at Plan, whether that's you or another one of your staff, really builds this relationship with the family as well as with the client. And it seems as though you all may serve to some degree as a bit of a liaison between perhaps the family members and the client to make sure that the client's needs are met.
And frankly, sometimes as a buffer, sometimes Plan is involved because it can get, as you could well imagine, it get contentious when a family has control of a significant amount of money that they are wanting to preserve and extend for the lifespan of the person. And sometimes the disabled individual sees that differently and wants more money now. And so sometimes we're in that position of, I wouldn't say peacemaker, but trying to negotiate what is going to be the appropriate level of resources to be distributed to the person at any given point in time.
Excellent. So how does a family member contact you if they are interested in learning more about plan and perhaps engaging plan to help with their loved one?
Well, they can go to our website, planofgeorgia.org, and there is a link there to submit a request for further information or for contact. And I'm pretty good about getting back to people quickly if they send in a request for further information or want to engage us in services. That's probably the best way.
Okay.
They can also call us at 404-634-0094 and leave a message. That works just as well. That generates automatically an email that someone's interested, that states what they're calling for.
And once a family member has contacted plan, what are the next steps? What can they expect to happen?
So they can expect a call back to gather information about more specifically what it is they're looking for, and to determine, do we have a fit? Because sometimes we just don't. Sometimes families are calling for something for an area that's beyond what we really feel qualified to do, or beyond our area of expertise. And if we determine that there is a fit, then the next step would be an in-person meeting to execute a contract, do a more formal intake and information gathering process, and a meeting with the client themselves. Sometimes, depending on the circumstance, we might meet with the family and the client together rather than separately. And so it really, there again, we're adjusting as what the situation calls for and what the family thinks is going to be the best way to go for their son or daughter or family member.
And I would imagine that, especially in cases where your client may have some mental health needs, that there has to be a bit of relationship building, a rapport established between you and the client, or the staff member and the client, to make sure that you all can work well together.
Yeah, and that's where it does help to have several people, because, I might not be the best fit. Patricia might not be the best fit for the person. And that's the other thing that we're trying to determine in the intake process, is who might be the best fit to work with this individual. And sometimes it's a team approach. Okay. We have several people, depending on what's happening, that are involved.
So could it be a situation where, maybe if the client needs home visits, they may be more comfortable with you coming out to the home, whereas if they need to go to the doctor, they may be more comfortable with Patricia or someone else there. Is that a situation where you all may have to work more as a team on your end to make sure that the client's needs are met?
Yeah, that certainly happens. Another good example of that is we might have the person who's more hands-on visiting the client, and then another staff person handling the money part, doing the representative payee part, so that the person who's visiting doesn't necessarily also have to be in that role of being the money manager person. We find that often the case. To split those two works the best.
That makes sense. So it seems like Plan really offers some unique services. I'll tell you, I personally have never heard of any other organization that provides the same level of service. Can you tell us what's different about Plan than other organizations that serve individuals with disabilities?
Well, couple things. I think we're the only one I know of where the contract for services is with the family and not with the client. So when we do our release of information and consent for services with the client, part of that agreement is that the client is allowing us to communicate with their families. So the families are never in the dark about what we're doing or what the essence is of what's going on with the client. Obviously, we don't go into blow by blow, because it is a balancing act. We want to respect the confidentiality of the client and maintain the relationship with them, but the client also understands that we're working for the family, and the family needs to know what's going on. Sure. So that's one of the things. I guess the other thing is the long-term perspective, that, we're there for years and years and years, and for the lifespan of the person is our goal, if that's what the family wants. So, the contract never ends unless the family decides that's what they want to do.
That's wonderful. So there is, in many cases, I would imagine, a long history of working with the client and a relationship that's been established.
It is one of the most rewarding aspects of the work, is to have been able to have relationships with clients. That have gone more than a decade. I've been with Plan now for, I guess I'm in my 12th year.
Wow. And
there's clients I've worked with for that entire time. So that's definitely the case. These are long-term relationships.
Well, that's really special. And I'm glad to hear it's, we hear so much about kind of short-term solutions. And so it's wonderful that Plan offers and encourages a long-term solution, a long relationship with both the family and the client. So that's fair.
I find that particularly helpful when working with other medical providers and psychiatrists. Mm-hmm. I know they appreciate it when there's someone who's involved with the client who knows them for that long.
Right.
And can speak from that longer term perspective. Like a frequent question that comes up with psychiatry and inpatient psychiatry admissions is, well, what is this person's baseline? Well, I pretty much, we get to know pretty in detail what the baseline is, right, and what their, optimal level of functioning is, and so forth. And so that long-term perspective helps other medical providers. Let me sum it up that way.
Sure. And that makes sense. And you probably get to know some things about your client that perhaps the family member may not know, because, the client may be more comfortable sharing things with you, or, showing another side to you, since they're able to see you and really interact with you.
Well, and that's certainly true. We also have situations where the families are no longer living in the Atlanta area. Okay. And so we're really the eyes and ears, because they may not be in a position to really know the details. Like, we're working with a family where the elderly parents are down in South Florida, but it was best for the client to stay here where he had developed relationships and home base. So he's here, but it's difficult for them to travel, and they're relying on Plan to keep them informed about what's happening with him, because they're really not in a position to know the details.
Well, it's great that you all offer such a wonderful service to family members and to your clients. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience about Plan?
I touched only briefly about the estate planning and trust planning part. I do want to say that we do act as a trust advisor. Okay. We do not act as a trustee, but we will help link families with attorneys that do trust and estate work. And we do work with trust as a trust advisor, in the sense of how best to distribute funds to the individual, and act as a middle person with the trust when the trust is not really in a position to be doing that. We may be providing the services and then billing that back to the trust, rather than the trust themselves distributing money directly to the person or paying bills on behalf of the person. We'll do that and then bill that back to the trust.
Okay. Well, that's another great service. And I'm sure that in many cases that's extremely helpful and less cumbersome to have you all handle that. So.
Yeah, and we are well versed in the ins and outs of special needs trust, which is what most of the families work. That's not always the appropriate kind of trust to have, but for a lot of our families who are concerned about the SSI and Medicaid benefits for their family member, we're really have pretty broad knowledge of that area and how special needs trusts work.
All right. Well, that is wonderful. Again, I want to thank you so much for coming to this show to talk with us and to share all of the wonderful services that Plan of Georgia has to offer. So thank you, Larry, again. For our families out there who may be watching or listening, if you have a loved one that is in need of any type of additional services, support, please reach out to Plan of Georgia and see what they may be able to do to assist not only your loved one, but also you as a family. This has been another episode of the DisabiliTEA. We thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to talking with you next time.
You've been listening to the DisabiliTEA with Anjel Burgess. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, and sharing the show with others. You can catch prior episodes at www.disabilityhelpline.com and on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more.